This is the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast, where we spread awareness for men's mental health and spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify. New episodes drop weekly. This is the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast, and I'm your host, Steve. Tonight, I am joined by my friend, Jay. Jay owns the N7Z Training Group. He is a veteran, former first responder, and he's also a mental health advocate for veterans and first responders. So he's joining me tonight to kind of share his testimony and help me raise awareness for men's mental health. Hey, while you're watching, go ahead and hit the bell and subscribe to the channel on YouTube and on Spotify. I drop new episodes every week and you don't want to miss one. Jay, thanks for coming on tonight, man. I appreciate it, brother.
Thank you, brother. I really do appreciate it. I know we've been going back and forth all day. I kind of had a crazy day, and I knew I wanted to be here for this. Something's driving me to be here and talk to you for this, and I can't also not make a deadline. So, I had to deal with my stuff earlier today, but this was in my mind, and I'm really glad that I'm here right now, and I feel at peace, and I'm, hopefully people enjoy the episode. And hopefully we can reach out and get some more guys talking, because this is something that's very near and dear to my heart, that I feel like has been kind of a more than a passion project for me over the last 6 years, with just different things I've experienced in life. And the trauma piece, I feel like there's just so many layers to it, and depending on when you catch it, it just kind of takes you on this weird journey. And a lot of people, I feel like, don't know, I definitely did not know, is when I had my first incident, let's say, that wasn't really the thing that fucked me up. It's all the other shit in life. And it's just interesting that we don't talk about this much in schools. I know my first few years in the military, probably first like almost 10 years in the military, this was a subject that you didn't bring up, because you were scared to either lose your job, it's going to affect morale within the unit. So many different rumors, just because it's an unknown and we didn't know how to deal with it. I do think that, well, I know it's still a huge issue, not only in just the veteran community, first responder community, but just kind of everywhere now. And the thing that I started thinking about recently is, are we like too much in their face about it? And I guess I'm more leaning towards suicide awareness. But at the same time, men's mental health, suicide awareness, go hand in hand. And that's obviously the worst day. But I was sitting down with one of my buddies a couple weeks back, and we're kind of brainstorming some stuff for 2026 and kind of some ideas and future goals we have. And he started a nonprofit, but he didn't want to name it anything suicide awareness or veterans against suicide or associated. He just wanted it to be fitness driven. But we know what the undertone is. The undertone is going to be men's mental health. It is going to be suicide awareness, but we're not going to put it in your face. And I feel like we're getting a negative effect from this. I feel like, at least in the military, it's because it's in your face all the time, and we're just labeling it. We keep labeling it, and we're not talking about trauma. We're not talking about stress. We're not talking about trauma management, stress management. It's solely just suicide awareness. Here's your 60-minute class. Make sure you guys check your box, and then you guys are good to go. We don't talk about empathy. We don't talk about, if someone comes to you with a problem, like, how do I, speak to that? Do I say, yeah, dude, I've been through the same thing, it's all good? Or do I say, dude, I can't even imagine what the fuck you just went through? Even if I did go through it, I might still respond that way, because I know if I'm opening up to someone, that is the type of stuff that I need to hear, that anyone needs to hear in that situation while they're being vulnerable.
It's hard, man, and it's really hard when someone does come to you, and I think you hit the nail on the head with the word empathy, instead of just throwing stuff and
our faces, like we need to be better with our mental health. We need to be, this and that. I think the biggest thing that I see is that, I'm 46, and the generation I grew up in, you didn't talk about your feelings. You didn't want to be a bitch. You just kind of powered through it. And when I was in the military, I mean, dude, that was a huge thing. You were seen as weak. You were seen, as a punk. And then when I got into law enforcement, it was almost even worse.
Really?
Yeah, man. And I think, like myself, I just self sabotaged to numb it. But my problem was that I had childhood trauma that I just buried and never worked on. And from what I'm seeing, man, I think a lot of what men do is they take trauma from a young age and they never address it. And then as they get older and go into these professions like the military or first responder roles, it just gets compounded with other shit and they don't know what to do with it. And then, like you just said, you go through a class and you hear about it, but who are you going to talk to? You don't want to be weak or lose your job. So most guys will try to numb it, rather than face it. And so I think maybe a good angle to approach it from would say, okay, here's a resource on how you can learn to address it without numbing it. Because the hardest thing I've dealt with, man, as a sober individual is you got to sit in that shit. You can't numb it. There's no way to mask it. You just got to sit in it. And I think men need to hear that it's okay to not feel okay. It's okay to ask for help with the right people, but also it ain't easy, man. There's no magic fix. This shit never ends. It's a daily thing, just like training, just like working out. It's a daily thing, man. And I think that would maybe help a little bit to tell men, like, you can't just go sit through a class or just talk to one friend and you're going to be cool. Like, you've got to work on this, almost on a regular basis.
No, I completely agree. I think it was interesting kind of when I went through my stuff because like I immediately started talking to someone and they're kind of like they're really breaking down trauma and kind of the what's about to happen with the different steps that you're about to face, like the anger and the this and the that and the denial, all these different phases that you're going to see, and then you're kind of listening to it and you're like, all right, I guess. And then then you're actually going through it, and then over time you're like, oh fuck, I am in the denial phase right now, or wow, yeah, I wonder why I felt so weird, not being affected by that event at first. It's because I couldn't even fucking, you know, process it enough for my body to actually feel it. And it's just interesting, man, the how the brain works, how trauma works, and you talk about the childhood trauma, and that's I feel like the biggest thing. And I was told like trauma is like a trash can, and we just keep filling it with shit and filling it with shit over the course of life. And then we don't know when that one piece is just going to tip over the trash can. It could be a very common event. It could be a movie. It could be a smell, something that just brings you back. And then boom. But then we mask it and we're like, oh, fuck. That was the trauma, dude. It wasn't the lifelong trauma that I endured. It was just this event. And then we're not digging deep enough. And, it's just this reoccurring cycle. But it's funny that it's crazy that you say on the first responder side, it was almost worse. I'm assuming that was probably a while ago.
Yeah, dude, I got out of law enforcement about 15 years ago. So
Oh,
I
shit.
know the department that I worked at. I still have some buddies there. They've done a lot to kind of, do like a critical incident response after something traumatic. So they've got people on staff, but I think it's that part of the where I live, the city has the money to do those programs. It's a smaller department, kind of an affluent area. So they're going to take care of, like, our community still for the most part likes cops and respect. Well, I would say like them, but they respect the job. Um, I'm in the South, so it's still pretty old school here. But yeah, man, like, I know it's funny you say all that because I remember going to a call and I lost a patient and I didn't process it until really almost 6 months later. Like, it didn't really, I felt it like on the call, but I didn't really like start having and he kind of dreams about it until like way down the road. It was a fire call. I was working as a cop, but it was a fire call, and I lost a patient. And it was just weird, man. Like, and I didn't know how to process it because no one really said like, "Hey, man, that was a bad call. You need to talk about it." They were just kind of like, "All right, everybody get back to your zone and keep working." So it's I don't know how it is. I don't know how it is now, like as far as the job goes.
And
Hopefully,
I bet some departments are still like that. My experience was the opposite, and I was grateful for that, because in the military, even though we like kind of turned the corner and we were like, hey, yeah, we are going to start dealing with this and you're not going to lose your job. For all of us that have been in, GWAT, early GWAT, middle GWAT, it's still kind of just in our brains. Like there's no way we're going to just admit to that, because like, the fear is still there. But then in 2023, I get out and I go to the guard, and then I become a cop full time. And it was interesting, one, because I did it like way later in life, but I had like a very good foundation of not only just training, which I'm very passionate about, but I feel the mental health side too. I had a lot of experience in this and helping other people. And when I showed up there, like you're almost immediately briefed, and it's kind of setting the tone of like, hey, this is how we do business. Um, Post incident, we will go through a kind of like get everyone together that was on the call, kind of like the feelings part. And we're going to talk about everything. And that was huge, because there's dudes on a call that I didn't even know was on a call. They don't know I'm on the call. Everything's going, a million miles an hour. But then when you hear like everyone's account of it, and then you put the pieces together of the puzzle, and you're like, oh shit, that I'm really glad we did this. And then, then we change a complete 180, and then we go into the tactical debrief. So it's like we're hitting both sides. And then also we have peer support, which was huge too. So anytime you're involved with anything, or anytime you need to reach out to someone, peer support is just always with you, like walking you through the process. And they're kind of like the confidant, like the consigliere in a mafia. Just we can go through them with anything, and we're safe. So, and then when I came back to the military for a little bit, I feel like I went back in time, because I'm like, fuck, dude, we were so updated on policy and everything like that. And then I felt like we were kind of going back in time.
I think too, it would probably help to kind of, at least for the younger generation out there, maybe thinking about getting into the military or a law enforcement role, the mental health component. And when I say mental health, that includes spiritual, emotional health, because I think there's a big difference in emotional
100%.
health and mental health. But put an importance on that as much as you do the physical side. Because I know my generation was really you go in the military, you want to get the highest score on your PT test, right? Because you're gonna get better schools, but easier chance getting promoted. But if you don't go into it with a healthy mindset, like my biggest problem was always pride, dude. Like I was always trying to be the biggest and the baddest physically, but like mentally, I mean, I could run a marathon, so I was mentally tough, but emotionally tough, I wasn't. I mean, watch like you said earlier, a certain movie or a commercial, and I'd fall apart. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I don't think they put enough emphasis on developing that emotional strength, and that means being humble, learning how to be vulnerable in the right circles, learning how to be not hiding behind imposter syndrome or wearing a mask. And I think if you can start there, I think it would help, especially in the stages of a job where you're potentially putting your life on the line, and you're going in harm's way.
Yeah. No, I like that. That reminds me, I had a Joe pretty recently kind of asked me like, hey, what makes a good sergeant? Which is obviously a fucking loaded question. And you can answer it 100 different ways, but I feel like I'm at a pretty good point in my career where I kind of, did enough, fucked up enough. And I kind of just told him, I was like, I think, a good sergeant is the guy that's pretty fucking good at everything. The guy who has his shit together at work, he's squared away. the guy who has this, everything's good to go at home, finances are good, spiritual health is good. Obviously, he's in good shape. He can walk the walk, but he can also talk the talk. A guy that can turn it up, but also turn it down depending on situations. Um, because if I'm just a stud, physically, but I'm a fucking wreck when it comes to, after we get back from something, like what fucking good am I? And so I like the way you said that though. Just kind of I'm always about balance. How can I create more balance in my life? If I feel like I'm getting strong in one thing, then maybe I need to start balancing it out with something that I don't usually like to do. Um, and I think as I've gotten older, I'm less, scared of failure, mainly because I've just been introduced to it so many times that I've just gotten so used to it. And with failure, like you do learn more. And that is something I think when you start getting older and you have some life experiences that you just appreciate it more. But there's always that little bit of like, why the fuck is this happening to me now? Why is this happening now? And I think that's where the faith side comes in. Because if you're able to have that balance with the faith, then it's like, okay, I don't know why this is happening right now, but I think something is going to tell me why in the future. And, that actually just happened to me. And I feel like it was the biggest impact in my life that I've at least had in a while. And in November, I injured my back, my L4, L5, and no cool story to it. I wasn't doing hood rat shit. I just, woke up with a sore back and tried to go golfing, and then I couldn't walk. Oh, I'm laying there. I already had leave put in for the 2 weeks, and then now I can't walk. So now I'm laying on my floor. I am no use to anyone. I can't defend my family. I can't even get up to take a piss. I'm pissing in a Gatorade jug.
Damn, dude.
So day one, I'm like, fuck. But I've been here before. So I was like, all right, this will work itself out in about a week. But there was something different about this one. And it was mainly because I couldn't walk. So everyone's outside the house and it's just me and my thoughts for 24 hours a day as I'm laying on the floor. And at first, I kind of was going through like denial and I was making weird stuff up in my head. I'm like, oh, dude, everyone's freaking out at work. I bet like they need me there. I'm texting work before I'm even better. And I'm like, dude, I promise I'll be back there as soon as I can. Uh, you know, I'm doing good. I'll get back there. And they're like, dude, just fucking chill. Like, take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Like, what are you doing texting us? And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? And then at that point, I was like, then I just started to dive into like, how do I better myself? How do I better my faith? And then one day I just kind of had a conversation with myself and I just let it all go and I felt good. I felt good for the first time in a while. I didn't have, I wasn't debating anything. I wasn't like going through a checklist of like my pros and cons. I just felt fine. And that's because I just let it go. It was me and my thoughts for about a week, which was a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But all of that turned into positive thinking instead of negative thinking. Starting my day with positive thinking, going into my PT stretches, and really trying to connect with my body, which I did. And then stuff started just happening, dude. And it was crazy. And uh, you hear the shit about talking positive, and I'm watching all these podcasts of all these wealthy people, and they're like talking about how they put it into like the universe. And like, I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to say I believe it or not. What I will say is I felt good. I talked positive, and the shit that I was putting out, I got, and it blew my fucking mind.
There, and I think another way to reframe that too is it takes an open mind and it takes some practice and maybe wisdom with age, but sometimes looking at hard things like, okay, what is God teaching me through this? And what I try to do, instead of saying, why is this happening to me? What is God trying to reveal to me? And I will tell you this without getting into a big story, but when you co-parent, you learn how to be humble real fast. And I'm a guy that struggled with pride for most of his life, but it's, I agree with you, man. Like, it's a good point saying, having positive thoughts and then you're going to get, positive things in return. But I think that's part of becoming self-aware and realizing that ultimately you cannot control everything in your life. Even as a high performer, no matter what kind of job you have, you're not in control of everything. And I think as we develop, you have to come to that realization that, it's okay to ask for help, or it's okay to say, like you were talking about text and work, like it's cool to take time for yourself, get better, heal so you can be better for your family versus like, oh shit, I got to get to work. They need me. And that's wisdom on your part, man, that you were able to like be positive through that experience where you can't move for a week. Cause a lot of people be freaking out, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
And you're right, because that's I think when I had the epiphany of like control,
mhm.
and that was the first time in my professional life where everything was taken from me. I couldn't go to the gym, I couldn't go to work, I couldn't distract myself with the shit that I normally distract myself with. I had to literally face it, and I'm glad it happened. I'm very glad it happened. Um and it's just crazy, like thinking to myself, like trying to get back to work. Like I would have done no one any fucking good.
Yeah.
But I had that mindset. It's just been instilled in me for so long where it's like push through, push through. But it's like, what good am I doing? I would be more of a detriment to my team if I showed up the way I showed up, than I would be if I just healed properly and then came back and then did it the right way. So very, very big moment, I think, in my life. Definitely self-awareness was the big topic of that. And yeah, knowing that, being vulnerable sucks. And, now I've focused on such a different part of my body. It's just been a lot of core movement and a lot of just longevity movement. I'm not worried about lifting the fucking house anymore. The only thing I'm worried about is getting to 50 and not limping, avoiding surgery, and shit like that. So
Yeah. How old are you, Jay?
34.
Okay. Okay. It's good to look at it at 34 because when I was 34, I wasn't even caring. I didn't care about longevity. That's why I need double shoulder replacement surgery.
I I told all my buddies, like I tell them, because Stuart McGill, I read the book by Stuart McGill, Back Mechanic, and that's what kind of changed my life, because I was able to avoid surgery. So all my buddies are like, dude, what are you doing right now? And I'm like, dude, it's sick. I'm working on core. I'm doing 4-minute planks. I'm doing longevity movements. I'm doing, lunges, but I'm still doing arms because I can't
Got to.
not
You got
have,
to.
yeah.
Every day, every
Like, I'm
day's
still
arm
a
day.
dude. So.
Yeah, every day's
Yeah.
arm day. Yeah. That's awesome, man.
But
Well,
yeah, man.
let's kind of change gears real quick, man. I'd like to hear, like, where are you from, and what was school like for you, and how did you end up going into the military, if you're cool with kind of talking about that a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm originally from New York. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, and I'm very grateful that I was born and raised there, because it's just such a melting pot, and it's just so busy. And for a young kid, especially in the 90s, like the amount of freedom I had and responsibility is something that I would never do with, children nowadays. Like, hey, go walk to school at, 6 years old. Never.
Yeah.
Um, so I was glad I was raised that way. And it was, I think I felt like I had to prove myself. I was the young dude, rolling around with my older brother and all of his older friends, and I come from a family of, service. Most of my family are firefighters or cops in New York. So tough dudes, alpha dudes. And I was the young cat just trying to prove myself. And, when I moved around and we left New York, I went to a part of, the Midwest, and they've never heard a 10-year-old with a Brooklyn accent before. So, you know, but I'm still kind of doing this weird, trying to prove myself thing. And I got into a lot of fights. A lot of it was like on because of my accent. And I was actually like getting bullied, which is crazy to think about now. Um, but yeah, I just got into a lot of fights, and, I was able to defend myself good enough to where at that point I was winning more than I was losing. But, um, yeah, I just kind of had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. Uh, but then that's when I got like heavy into sports, and that kind of like evened that out to where it was like I didn't have so much energy for doing dumb shit. Um, and I think that was kind of like the start of like some of my values. So me getting bullied, but then getting a lot bigger, kind of made me like want to protect people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that started at a very young age, but also too, like first responders, military, like the screw's not all the way loose, but it's still pretty fucking loose, you know?
Yeah, no doubt.
So, but there's one thing that changes us from a criminal. We just know how to control it just a little bit better. So I think that's where I started to like really fall in love, or at least, have that idea always on my head that I will always protect someone that can't protect themselves. And I was always into sports, very competitive, jack of all trades, master of none. But I was good at talking. After I just say um but
We can cut that
I was
out.
good at talking, and I was good at talking, and I really loved like helping, coaching.
Okay. Yeah.
So my whole time through high school, I coached every sport. I coached basketball, hockey, anything that I can get my hands on, because I just love the teaching aspect. And as I was getting older, I graduated high school, and I was still kind of fucking around. I became a personal trainer.
Really?
Young.
Nice.
Yeah, 18,
Nice.
2009, I get my training certificate, and I'm like, bro, this is life. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Like, this is the greatest time of my life. I get to work out and I get to train people.
Yeah.
Then I got, hit in the face with the reality of like, oh, I have to maintain a clientele. I have to always have one in the chute at all times.
Mm-hmm.
The split was very good at the time, but at the same time, I wasn't able to keep myself with that clientele. So that was hard. We didn't have social media at the time either. So it was just, old school, you know how it is, trying to find clients or trying to pick up clients as they're entering the gym and talking to that initial person. But so then, I get my CDL and I'm like, hey, this is it, dude. I'm doing this for the rest of my life. And I started slanging beer for Anheuser-Busch. I'm having like the time of my life. It's like a fraternity there. And then the oil field is like booming at this time. And we all jump ship as a team, and we pretty much all go to the oil field. And now the oil field, I wasn't teaching. I wasn't really protecting, because there's just a bunch of mean motherfuckers, dude. It was like my precursor to the military, though, because I got the structure. So the one thing that was missing out of this was the structure, and the oil field is where I got it. Everything is based on seniority, based on rank, and you work your way up. You see what the highest dude is doing, and then you're the pissant. You're doing all the bitch work. It's yelling, it's dirty, it's not fucking a kind environment. You have to have tough skin. And then it was at that point where I was like, all right, dude, I think I'm going to join the military now. Like, it was always something in the back of my head. I either wanted to be a cop or be in the military. So that's when I did it, and it just clicked. I was like, fuck yeah. Because the biggest problem I had, at least society was telling me this was a problem, was I had a lot of jobs, and that was bad. But to me, it didn't feel bad, because every time I got a job, I learned the job. I tried to master it, because I have this obsessive personality of just like diving into anything that I do. But I was missing something, essentially. So when I got to the military and I had the structure, everything was mapped out, I was like, dude, this is perfect for me. Like, They're telling me when to get up, everything to do, be ready at this time. I'm getting yelled at, dude. I was getting yelled at my whole life. You're not going to scare me. Like it was comforting. Like I knew everything had a reason, and I'm glad I did it when I was older, because if I would have came in at the age that I wanted to come in at 17, I would have still left better than I came, but I don't know if it would have clicked for me as well as it did coming in at like 22 when I did. Um, so that was huge. So, I'm kind of now what I used to get, kind of talked down to, like, hey, you're doing too many jobs. Like, this doesn't look good on resumes. You're never going to find a career doing this. Now I get to, there's so many jobs I could do within one job. And now I'm getting put in a leadership role because I'm with a bunch of 18-year-olds and I just have that bit more experience, and they trusted me because I just didn't do anything dumb, and I just wanted to hit the timelines and do my shit.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'm literally doing everything now that I've done my whole life, the mixture of customer service, the mixture of protecting, the mixture of leading, coaching, developing. Um, and I had an interesting career in the military, dude. I came in as an infantryman in the Army. Um, didn't deploy, and that hurt. Like training years and years for something, the only thing an infantryman is trained to do, and you don't do it. And that was a hard pill for me to swallow. But like I said, I can't not work. So I got picked up from the honor guard, and that was, one of the most honorable things I've ever done. And I'm glad my career kind of started that way, because everything was about perfection. We're putting on essentially a show, but in the most professional manner that you can ever imagine. And we're the last thing that a military family is going to see of the military potentially for the rest of their life. They lost someone, whether, killed in action or natural causes, but they're a veteran. They have a flag over their casket. We're going to perform this service. And the only expectation is perfection. And my career is starting off that way, even though, I was kind of bummed where I thought it was going to go. It ended up being really good. And I'm glad I did that. I was very grateful to do that. I learned so much, not only about myself, but just about professionalism. You know, Something as silly, to maybe someone that's untrained, of just standing perfectly still for an hour straight, when my shoes are melting off my feet, but I'm looking at a family that's broken right now. And my only job is to fold this flag correctly, make sure it gets handed to them, um, and deliver a good service. So, from there, I went on to recruiting, and I became a recruiter. And it was crazy for me, because I was like, I was just at the very last moment of a service member's career. And now, flip it, I'm at the very beginning of a service member's career. And, I was doing really good at recruiting. It was kind of like a mixture of all the things I liked. I liked a little bit of selling. I liked a little bit of competition. I liked, trying to beat, always having that fire lit under you, like trying to make mission, getting the people in. And it was like gambling to me, because you do all this pre-work with all these guys, you're interviewing them, you're doing all the medical with them, and then you take them up to MEPS, and then you don't know what's going to happen. They might get an 11 on their ASVAB. They might fail medical, for some odd reason, varicose veins. I had a guy get kicked back for that.
No kidding.
And then, but then when they go and then everything's green lights across the board, it's just a feeling that you cannot, like, it's gambling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I fell so in love with that job that it almost cost me everything, because this was my first experience of overworking. I've always been a hard worker,
Mhm.
but I never had to do anything, more than what was required for me for that workday. This was a job, no matter what I was on, I'm always trying to close, because the saying was, make mission, go fishing. So get your numbers in, and then you can take your foot off the gas for a little bit.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is when you're a recruiter, and I feel for all the recruiters out there, and if you can balance it, God bless you. But if I go out to dinner and my waiter or waitress is a military age male, female that doesn't look like they have any injuries and they look pretty good, there's no way I'm not going to talk to them, because that's a potential lead that I could have.
You're right.
So boom, anytime I go out anywhere, I'm talking to someone, I'm trying to sell the Army, do all this stuff. And it was just consuming my life. I would go to work. I'd be in an office day all day, 10 hours a day. I'd come home, open up my computer, get right back to work. And yeah, I didn't want to stop. I would still be doing it probably to this day. But I had a big kind of like life change, and I wasn't really expecting it. And this was, another thing that was probably a sign. And I was questioning it at first and fighting it, but it came, and it ended up being one of the better things to happen to me, which was getting out of the Army and joining the Air Force. Yeah. And that was something, obviously, as an Army guy, the Air Force is definitely, not the branch that we're looking to go to, but oddly enough, it's the branch that the Army and Marine Corps just retire at. And the crazy thing about the Air Force was I was so unique to the Air Force, to this specific like squadron I went to, because of all the basic knowledge I had as an infantryman. And then you mix the recruiting and then the public speaking, and then I just had something that they just didn't know about yet. Which was just, in all reality, it was just basic field tactics, battle drills, shit like that. So as soon as I had like a specialty for them, they used and abused me, and I loved it. Because the Air Force is very much, if you're a SME in something, if you're a subject matter expert, we want you to teach it, dude. We don't give a shit about your rank. In the Army, it was the highest rank, the most knowledge. Why the hell would an E4 know more than an E6? That doesn't make sense to me. That was kind of that logic. But in the Air Force, it was like, holy shit, you were a teacher before? That's pretty sweet, dude. Do you want to teach a class? And like everything is like so laid back.
Yeah.
But there's definitely been a lot more positives about the Air Force than negatives, I will say, and I'll be pretty honest about that. I'd say another positive, it definitely changed my leadership style. And that was the first time working with women, which I've never done before. Obviously, I was in the infantry still when it was all male.
Yeah.
So the leader, there was a couple weird things about the Air Force. One, we had to take a fucking test no matter what we did, like a written like test. And in the Army, it's all hands on. We just do sticks and lanes.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, there's a 240, break it down, put it back together. The Air Force is like, if I was a 240 and I had, X amount of fucking pieces, what would my nomenclature be? And just the craziest shit that you can imagine. I'm like, dude, so I am not doing good on the tests. But it was cool because they care so much about like this whole other aspect of warfare. They care about like the mind and how technical you are. And the Army was very tactical. So I always say like I created this foundation in the Army, but the Air Force kind of, shaped me. And then another thing that they were like preaching was leadership styles. And I was like, what the fuck is a leadership style, dude? Like, do what you're told and execute. That's a leadership style. And they're like, no, there's like laissez-faire, there's a coaching style, there's and I'm like, what is going on? And then they give you this book and it breaks down all these leadership styles. And I'm like, so you're telling me that I have to kind of make my leadership style mold to my people? And they're like, that's exactly what we're fucking telling you. And then that was a huge game changer.
Yeah, I bet.
Because I'm learning how to now be a leader based on these different leadership styles and learning how to communicate with people differently and effectively. But also we're getting this new generation in for like the first like group of dudes that are like new generation, like we're talking 2000 birthdays. And it was a big learning curve because these dudes just kept asking why. And I'm like, what the fuck do you mean, why? I was like, I tell someone to take out the trash, and he's like, why, Sergeant? I'm like, why are you asking me why? And I'm like,
Yeah.
about to lose my shit.
Yeah.
But then I look at him again, and he's legitimately wanting to know the reason why we do this. Like, he wants the by the numbers. Why do we do this? Because I'm really curious. And then I was like, it took me, I won't lie, it took me like a year to get used to that.
Dude. Yeah, I'm sure.
But then, you know, when I became a firearms instructor, all these kids kept asking why so much. I was like, dude, I'm not even going to waste the first 30 minutes of my class. I'm just going to tell you the why in the beginning. And that changed the course of my training and how effectively I was able to get into the minds of people. Because, you know, going to a range on a flat range, shooting a gun is one thing. But if you can get into the mind of someone and establish the why beforehand, and then we go to the range and we're not just shooting a paper target, we're shooting something that's trying to kill you, your family, your friends, and you establish that, I just got my return on investment was so much higher that in reality I was starting to thank these kids for asking why, because it just made my explanation so much better, because I was always defending. I was on this constant like, this is why we do it, dude. And then it just got to this script where I was like, okay, now I'm getting pretty fucking good at explaining the why. So yeah, that's kind of like a little bit about childhood, and then kind of how I got into the military. And you know, the military is my love. The military is my wife. Being a cop is my mistress. I love both of them. Truly do. Yeah.
How were you treated when you first got into law enforcement coming from a military background? Was your department pretty open-minded with that? Did they respect you, or did you have a reverse effect where they kind of saw you as a threat because you did serve in the military and some guys that were in law enforcement maybe didn't? How was that experience for you?
That was actually a very weird experience for me. I thought I was giving my department the best product that I could possibly give them, training wise and just, you know, life experience wise. But it's funny because they don't give a fuck about your experience. It means nothing. And it took me a little bit to figure that out, because, you know, anytime you go to a new unit, or a new department or whatever, or even just talk to different department guys, like it's always the pissing contest first. So I was expecting that, but I know what it's like to be a new guy. I know what I expect my new guys to do, which is keep your mouth shut, take orders, and execute. So I started that way. Now, what they perceived it as is, this guy is almost like disrespecting us. Like, why is he so quiet? Why is he not coming up to us and talking to us? Like, who the fuck does he think he is? And I didn't even think about it like that, because I'm just thinking of keep your mouth shut, do your job. You know, this isn't time for you to start making friends, or, you know, even if you know about a topic, keep your mouth shut and just keep pressing. So then luckily I had one of my buddies who's a veteran, and he's like, hey, bro, no one knows your experience. And quite honestly, no one gives a fuck about your experience. What happens is people start talking, and then we go out to something. They don't perform the way they talked. And then now we're in a weird situation. He's like, so every single person is going to have to see you on a call to see how you react. And then you'll get, you know, some bit of respect. And I'm glad he said that, because, and I actually respected it after he said that. I was like, yeah, they're right. Like, how the hell are they going to know that, like, I take all my time for training? And, you know, maybe we're talking to a suspect and I'm thinking we're going to do something. And he's not knowing that I'm thinking that way because he's never worked with me before. Now, the frustrating part was, you know, I was already established in the military. I had a lot of responsibility. You know, I was an E6 at the time. I kind of been there, done that at least a little bit, enough to get to where I was. But now I'm thinking of it, I'm like, fuck, dude, did I fuck up? Like, now I'm at the bottom. I'm fucking, you know, 30. I'm in my 30s now. Now I'm having to kind of like redo this, but I loved it because it was like the best gut check I could ever have. And it was so humbling. And I just kept my head buried, and I kept doing it. I kept picking up the shitty calls because I was on an all senior guy shift. And I remember at like the 6-month mark, I was like talking to, some mentors, and I'm like, I'm doing everything I possibly can, dude, and I'm getting nowhere. And I've been on big calls, like I've handled myself. I got into a fight. I did my thing. I'm always backing people up. I'm taking the shitty calls. Like, what am I doing wrong? And they're like, just hang on, dude. And then literally, it was like the next day after that, something just changed. And I knew it as soon as I walked into briefing because someone just said something to me. And I was like, oh, fuck. And then people started like hanging out with me after calls and stuff, like bullshitting.
Yeah.
But I had to have that experience with every single person. And that's the difference between law enforcement to fire, because fire, we're all in the same house. We're cooking together. We're eating together. We're doing everything together. We leave together. We come back together. Law enforcement, I might not be on a call with you for a month. So if I'm a new guy, the only thing you're going off of is hopefully good reputation. But even then, are you willing to trust it, like on a gun call? Or, so it was very interesting, very humbling, but I loved it. I loved the job. I did come in at a weird time, post COVID, post George Floyd, a lot of politics. But I still, was able to find the good people, proactive people, like people I wanted to emulate. And I had a fucking blast, dude.
Man, I love your mindset and how positive you are. Just hearing you talk, like a lot of guys, myself included, going into that role and, being quiet, keeping their head down, and then people not talking. That, for me personally, that made me more just kind of disgruntled. But I love your attitude, man. That's just, it's contagious. I love it.
I appreciate it. It's really actually because I'm dumb, dude. I I am I think it's I make shit up in my head, dude. I make these like competitions up in my head, and I'm just like fighting myself. And it works really well, like for the self-motivation.
Yeah.
But my biggest problem is I need to know, like, when do I stop that? Because I keep chasing something, and now I'm working 60 hours of overtime, not seeing my family. Am I doing good? I'm doing good for work,
Yeah.
but who gets the leftovers? You know what I mean?
Right.
And that was a huge thing for me to understand, because like I grew up in a household where working hard was what you did. But the thing that I fucked up on is my dad, my mom were hard workers. And, my dad was always there, though. We never got like his leftovers. You couldn't tell if he just woke up or just went to bed. But with me, it was like I'm giving it all to one place, one organization, and someone's not getting it. And I did not know how to cope with that. And I'm still trying to get better at it. But yeah, it's life lessons, especially like in our worlds, like divorce rate, having a divorce is like having a belly button. Like everyone has one. Um, it's it's unfortunate, but it is, the lifestyles we have, and it's hard because you do a hard fucking job, dude.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is you do a hard job, and you might be the baddest fucking cop in the world. You go to all these calls, you've seen all the shit, but then, it gets to a point where it's like, how worth it is it? But I know what it's like when you take a bite of that, like it's fucking good, like chasing that adrenaline all the time, like, but also, then there's like the helping people aspect too, where it's like, I get to solve real stuff. Real stuff is in front of my face, and I get to do something about it to the best of my ability. Being a cop now is crazy. I kind of compare it to joining at a time of war. Everyone watches the news. You know what the worst day is going to look like. But kids are still stepping up. I know the dudes that have been on for 5, 10, 15 years and retired right now, they have mixed feelings, and I do not knock them on that. How are you going to judge a guy who did the fucking job, right? They know, because they've seen it enough times. They know what they're talking about is true. But I do feel like that we're turning the corner, and I feel like good dudes are stepping up because they want to step up. They see the bad and they want to involve themselves in that. And in my mind, there's no difference of when you saw the towers fall, what you wanted to do. Like, we saw the news, the war was being documented right in front of our face, and people were still enlisting. And I think there is something to say about that type of patriotism, especially towards your community, that, people talk about it all the time, being deployed, experiencing something, coming home, compared to, getting into a shooting or watching someone die on that corner that you now have to drive by 15 times a day.
Yeah.
Both suck. Both
Yeah.
suck. I hate when people compare trauma. They both suck. Because I tell you what, the same dude that experienced, watching one of their friends die, and the same dude that experienced a kid die, like, who's to say that they're not feeling the same thing? But we're so tough sometimes that it just comes to a pissing contest, and we're starting to compare.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, dude, but I did this. And it's like, dude, but in reality, I guarantee we both feel like shit, right? Like, do you not sleep? I don't sleep. All right. Yeah. So we both suck. And, where do we go from here?
Yeah. And I know one thing too, like when I was in law enforcement that I carried was I never deployed, and I regretted that. Like you were kind of mentioning earlier, I carried that, and I always associated PTSD with active duty guys that were overseas, not police officers. And so I never was self-aware enough to realize after some bad calls that it would have the same impact on me as perhaps being, like you just mentioned, maybe watching a friend die in combat versus losing someone on the street, like a victim or something like that. And I don't know, man. I wasn't self-aware enough to actually go to therapy or to talk to somebody. I just I felt less than because I didn't obtain the job that I wanted in the Navy, I thought the career I was going to have. So nothing was ever good enough for me. And I just didn't have enough self-awareness to say, hey, you're in this role now as a police officer. You've got a good job. You're in a good town. Make the best of it. I was just chasing a ghost. And so it's cool to hear you put it that way, because I don't think people see that in that perspective that haven't worked in law enforcement. If you're working in the town you live in, you're going to go by places where you may have had a bad call, or you may run into a person on the street that you've arrested before, and you've got to deal with that, and I don't think that gets talked about enough. And that's a reality of law enforcement. I mean, it could happen, pretty easily.
And it is interesting, dude. So I've always had that mindset, when I was 6 years old, me and my dad were walking in the city, and my dad told me, he's like, hey, every 5 steps, I want you to look back and see if anyone's following us. And that was my indoctrination into preparedness. And, I definitely do it to a point that's probably unhealthy. Like, it's constant scanning. It's constant, like, I'm always on. Unless I'm at home, I'm at a comfortable place, I'm always on. And the crazy thing is like, if you're a cop and you're proactive and you're like getting after it, you don't necessarily stop like the scanning of people. Like, you don't stop like, okay, I know that brand of clothing, I know that's associated to gangs. Like, you're just constantly on. And it's interesting, and yeah, and I don't think they do talk about it enough. And I think one of the craziest things that I learned was, I guess experienced was, I remember Christmas, I think it was Christmas last year, we had 3 deaths. It started off with like a pretty gnarly car accident into a wall of a business, and then I'm like back to back to back going to deaths. And, we're so desensitized to this at this point, depending on how long you've done it or how many calls you've been on. And, I'm going, it's normal. Now I'm on my 3rd one. So I'm just going in, taking pictures, doing my thing, talking to the coroner, getting the sergeant, and then I go home and I celebrate Christmas. And it's like, it's almost like I would like go into different worlds. Like that drive into work, I'm just thinking, and I'm preparing myself, and I'm rehearsing what I'm going to say. God forbid, my call sign, shots fired, or my call sign, fighting. I'm going through that in my head. I'm preparing myself. And then on my way home, I'm trying, to relax, maybe some calm music. And then I get home, boom, I'm hugging my kid. And it's like, I'm still smelling dead body in my nose, but now I'm turning off the switch, and I'm like, here I am. And it's just, it was so mind blowing to me. It's like, I just witnessed the worst shit, and now I'm home. I'm safe. I'm calm. But it was just this crazy thing of like on and off. But I loved it. But I think originally I loved it because of that reason that you said, because I left the military because I didn't deploy. I didn't obtain a combat deployment. And that whole time I'm training people. I'm training people because I was going to a bunch of schools and I was becoming really good at my skills. And I remember training the part-time guys, and I'm training them on CQB, which is something that I feel very passionate about because it's like it's art to me. Um, Sometimes, you know, no words just flow, and you're just maneuvering the most violent art form that you can imagine. And then after I teach that class, my buddy comes up to me. He's like, dude, check this shit out. And he shows me a video, and it's him doing CQB with a lady at knife point. Bad DV call, lady at knife point, him and his boys, you know, kick the door down and then put a gun in this dude's face. And it was literally at that moment in time that I was like, I can't do this anymore. I feel fraudulent. I can't do this anymore. And I put in my paperwork, and then I got out. And then the thing that I was chasing originally, though, before falling in love with the job, was I was treating it like a Rolodex in my head. I had a checklist of shit that I needed to see. And then it was like, boom, check box. It's like, boom, you know, get shot at, boom, respond to medical, boom, drive a car really fast, boom. And I was like checking this box for my own self gain. I was still doing everything right. I fell in love with trying to trying to investigate, learning how to investigate, learning how to write reports. Like I did truly fall in love with that. But the first couple months was like chasing. I was chasing it. And it delivered a couple times. And the biggest positive that came out of that was like, because my thing was fraudulent, but when I was faced with what I was faced with on certain occasions, I was calm. And I said, okay, so the training was right.
Yeah.
Everything I did do was right, but it was just never tested.
Right.
So now it's tested, and now I'm able to finally give it the validity, which gave me a bit of peace. But it is still something that I actively think about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. It's you hit the nail on the head earlier and talked about, we need to experience failure, and it took me a long time, a lot of therapy to let go of a failed military career. And I unfortunately self-sabotaged because of it, because I didn't want to live with myself because I didn't earn a title. I didn't have a warfare device that I wanted since I was a kid because I couldn't deal with it. But I, looking back, should have seen law enforcement as a new opportunity, make the most of it instead of this isn't good enough. This is not, because dude, I when I showed up, it was hard to get the job. I mean, I don't think people realize becoming a police officer is a long process and it's very competitive. And I was excited when I got the job, but I was that asshole that looked around the room and was like, fuck, man, these guys can't even do 10 push-ups. I was just a cocky asshole, man. And I was confident in my abilities, and I think I was a pretty decent cop, but I didn't appreciate it, man. I was ungrateful. And I should have had a different mindset and said, okay, this is a second lease on life. I can do this career, be at home at night or in the morning if I work midnights like I did. But so yeah, man, I think it's life has a funny way of kind of teaching you these moments of, and I pissed my career away because I was an idiot off duty, but but I'm not going to get into that. But
It happens.
yeah, dude, it does. But I think a lot of us guys that didn't deploy, we struggle with that, dude, and it's hard, especially when you're like, I come from a family of combat vets, and it's hard, man. It's hard. Like, you almost feel like you're in the shadow of legends, and you're trying to find your own place in life, and it's tough, man. But that's where the mental health piece comes in, right?
Yeah. 100%. And Yeah, it's one of those things, you know, only a certain group of people experience. Um, you know, and the civilian populace, you know, bless them, but we do get put on a very high pedestal, sometimes higher than I think, you know, we should. But anyone that's served, anyone that's taken an oath and has done at least the bare minimum, I have the utmost respect for, because at some point in time, dude, you missed something. You missed a holiday. You know, you sucked ass for a little bit. You were outside in the cold. Like, you did something.
Right.
Um, but if you would have asked me that 11 years ago, I would have been like, no, you need to do it all, dude. Like, fuck that. You're not going to, you know, come here and not show up every day. And it's just, it's interesting how life happens, dude. And uh, I'm just, I'm grateful for both the careers that I was given. I'm grateful that I do love both of them equally. Um, you know, and I'm grateful that you let me come on here
Yeah, dude, for sure.
and chop it up with you for a little bit, because this was really good for me too.
Yeah, and after the day you had, man, I really appreciate you. Obviously, this is not a priority compared to everything else you had going on, and I'm grateful for you coming on tonight. And as we're kind of getting to the end, I just wanted to ask you, Jay, is there like a principle that has kind of carried you through harder times in life, or like a creed or a favorite scripture in the Bible that kind of gives you that extra motivation to keep pushing forward you want to share with our audience?
That's a good question. I think a lot of it is situation based. I think when I'm faced in when I'm faced with situations that I know is like, okay, this might have long-term effects on me. I think I just start compartmentalizing, but in the right way. I'll kind of start reassessing myself, and that's where like the self-awareness comes. And then I kind of go through this weird mental checklist in my head of like, okay, what did we just see, or what did we just experience? Do I think this is going to be something that could potentially have a long-term effect? And I kind of have to turn on like everything to be like, okay, now I have to see like, how am I acting at home? How am I interacting with people? Am I super short with people? And then at that time, I need to start like figuring shit out. You know, the gym obviously helps out with a lot. Uh, but sometimes it doesn't make it all go away. So then at that point, I'm going to start talking to more people, trusted confidants that I have, um, and then start releasing some of that. And I think the one thing, and I don't know if it's going to be weird or not, but the constant like strive for innovation really helps me. Just the thought of like thinking about something and then kind of obsessing about it. That's kind of how I get out of a lot of things. When I hurt my back, I was out for, you know, a month and a half. I must have came up with 5 different business strategies, but it landed to something that was good, which was just an answer that I really needed. But the creativity, I love being in I love being in rooms, round tables with a lot of voices, positive though, because a lot of good comes out of that. But sometimes people don't appreciate just what getting in a room does, or what getting online does and talking to someone,
Mm-hmm.
because something clicks eventually. It doesn't hit every time, but I will say that does help me a lot, is just starting to work on a new idea, finding a problem of something else, starting to work on it. Because the whole time I start working on it, it's technically giving me the keys to success that I need personally. And then I'm like, fuck, I'm an idiot. I should just apply the same thing that I just did for these 5 business strategies, and to myself though.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this weird thing that I do for just self-awareness, is I essentially obsess about a business from start to finish. And then all the trials and tribulations that I come across is essentially what I'm going through at that time, that I just need to project more on myself.
I don't think that's weird at all, man. And I mean, I was going to ask you, like, how did you develop this self awareness? Like, where did you learn this?
I the only thing I can come up with is failure.
Okay.
I know a lot of people say it like I've failed more times than I've won, but dude, I've really fucking failed like a lot. Like, You know, I failed my fucking driver's test. Like there has not been a point in life where the greater beings were like, you know what? He doesn't need a lesson, dude. We'll just give him a first time pass. That has never happened to me ever.
Yeah.
And I think I contribute a lot to my dad. My dad is just a hard fucking worker, 30-year law enforcement career. Knew how to balance it all, never knew the difference unless he told me, never knew what he experienced day to day. And it was just the shit he instilled at a young age. Like anything you do it the best you can.
Mhm.
And then the respect issue of like, whether it's the fucking janitor or the CEO, they both get the same amount of respect. And I think these little sprinkles of life lessons that I didn't understand at the time, but over time I experienced, I think has brought me a lot of awareness. And I think honestly, just a lot of talking. The talking that I do, you know, this talking right here is probably going to be huge for me. And that's something that I do a lot. I don't like, if I'm with the boys, I don't like to, you know, sit around a TV. I like to fucking brainstorm.
Mhm.
Like, let's talk about something, dude.
Yeah.
And I think that's been really beneficial to me. And I have no idea why I am the way I am, but I'm starting to finally kind of come to terms with it and be like, you know what? I think I do know what I'm doing. I get a little distracted and I got to kind of keep my true north compass like intact. Cause every now and then, dude, we'll walk in a straight line right now for 100 yards. You're not going to be straight. It's going to veer off.
Yeah.
That's the same thing with life.
Yeah. Well, where can our audience learn more about you? Because, dude, you have some just badass content online.
I appreciate it, dude.
Oh, I love it, man. I love it. Where can people learn more about you?
So N7Z on Instagram. It's N7 spelt out and Z. You guys can feel free to DM me, like any of my videos, talk shit in my comment section, whatever you guys want to do. I'm all about it. My biggest thing is I'm trying to get better and I'm documenting the experience. You'll see some things on there. I do work for a company, an armor company called Extremis Systems. We have the lightest helmets on the market. We have some of the best armor that I've ever seen. And they are hands down the most confident company that I've seen. Because my first interaction with them was, I told them, I was like, I'm going to need to shoot your products. And they were like, okay, what's your address? And it went like that. So N7Z on Instagram. I'm always sharing everything about your podcast. I truly believe in it. I wouldn't be here in front of you right now if I didn't believe in it. And brother, I'm grateful that you had me on. You've had some huge names come on. I feel like I shouldn't even be, you know, spoken or shared on your same timeline as them. But I'm very humbled and I'm very grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, man. And that's bullshit. You do deserve to be here. And I'm honored that you,
I appreciate you.
I mean, you reached out to me, man, and I appreciate you. And I want to say this while we're talking on this subject. This is therapeutic for me too, man. I have met more solid men online and shared stories and testimonies with than I have in person. And something I experienced when I left the military and law enforcement, I lost a lot of those friends, man, because I wasn't part of the club anymore. And you know how it is, dude. It's hard to relate to the normal everyday citizen when you're more of an alpha type and, you know, high performer who's done these, you know, cool jobs. And so for me, it's therapeutic to get on here and kind of listen to stories and also, you know, provide some of my experiences. So I'm really grateful for you, man. And I appreciate you taking time out, especially after today, you know, coming on with me tonight.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah. And
it was worth it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I want to ask you this as we're kind of getting done here. If there's a man that's on the verge of giving up right now, what would you say to that man?
I'd say give it a day. Give it a day and reassess it. And then when that day comes to an end, give it another day. I think that's why I like obsessing about ideas, because with ideas comes goals, and with goals comes some bit of fucking light at the end of the tunnel. And if you're going through it, and you're not ready to reach out to someone, I would say give it a day.
Good advice. Good advice. Brother, I'm going to close this out with a prayer. Ready to rock? Here we go.
Let's do it.
Father, thank you for tonight. Thank you for Jay, and thank you for this platform to be able to just share testimonies and to raise awareness for mental health. Lord, I just pray that you will continue to be with Jay, be with his family and his loved ones, and just protect them and cover them in your blood. Lord, I'm so grateful that you've just inspired me to reach out to these men, to let them share their stories on this platform. And Lord, I just pray that you will bring peace and you bring power and you bring purpose into everyone's life that's listening to this episode. I pray that it will reach those men that feel alone, that feel like they just have nowhere to turn and they're lost and they just don't know how to get help and how to just feel like they matter in this world. Lord, I just pray you will bless all of us and forgive us of our sins. It's in your mighty name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for tuning in to the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel and share this episode with someone out there that you might know that might need to hear it. And Jay, man, I am so grateful for you, dude. Thank you so much for coming on tonight and just sitting down with me. Before we roll out, dude, I want you to plug that shirt you're wearing because that's near and dear to my heart. I'll let you explain it.
Yeah, so Forward Observations Group dropped a Night Stalker shirt. This is a memorial shirt. I really try to donate anytime a memorial shirt drops, but if you know the Night Stalker community, you know that they are hands down some of the baddest motherfuckers to walk this planet. So it's an honor, that I got to purchase it, donate a little bit of money to them, and to wear it proudly. So
thank you, brother. Appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's a great
Yes,
organization, and West Stacy is near and dear to my heart. So it's really cool to see you rocking that t-shirt. So I love it, man.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, man. Well, I really appreciate you joining me tonight, man.
Yeah, brother. I'll text you, but I appreciate it, man. Thank you.